Karoline Leavitt stood frozen, her heart pounding loudly in her chest as the words of the hotel manager reverberated through the opulent lobby of the Grand Sapphire Hotel. The vibrant chandeliers overhead flickered in the glow of the afternoon sun, casting shimmering patterns on the polished marble floors, but none of that splendor could soften the impact of his accusation. She had arrived with visions of relaxation and indulgence, an escape from the relentless grind of her 9-to-5 life, but now that dream was unraveling like an old tapestry. "What do you mean, how dare I?" Karoline stammered, trying to gather her thoughts, her cheeks flushing with a mix of anger and embarrassment. "I have a reservation here. I paid for this weekend." The manager, a tall man with a neatly trimmed beard and eyes that seemed to bore into her, the kind of gaze that made you feel like you were being judged from head to toe, sneered slightly. "Your reservation is under a different name. A name associated with some rather unsavory activities." Karoline's mind raced back to the confirmation email she had received weeks ago, double-checking the name attached to her credit card. "That's impossible. I made the reservation myself, my name, my credit card. There must be some mistake." He arched an eyebrow, unimpressed. "I can assure you, Ms. Leavitt, we do not make mistakes. The name on file is linked to a group that was blacklisted after a series of incidents last summer. I'm afraid we cannot accommodate you." Feeling the heat rise in her cheeks, she glanced around the lobby, where her moment of arrival had initially felt like stepping into a fairy tale, laughter ringing out from the cafe corner, excited guests checking in, the aroma of rich coffee wafting through the air. Now, it all felt distant, the reality of the moment crashed down, waves of disappointment threatening to drown her spirits. "I don't know how that's possible. Please, can you check again?" Karoline pleaded, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've been looking forward to this weekend for so long. I saved up for it, worked extra shifts. I just want to enjoy a little time away from the chaos of work." The manager's expression softened for the briefest moment, but just as quickly, it hardened once more. "This isn't personal. It's about the hotel's reputation," he stressed, crossing his arms defensively. "If there's an error, you can take it up with customer service, but I cannot allow you to stay here." With a heavy heart, Karoline felt the first pangs of despair nipping at her resolve. She had envisioned lounging by the pool, sipping a cocktail, and enjoying long, leisurely meals in the hotel's renowned restaurant. But it was slipping away like sand through her fingers. "I'm sure there's something you can do," she pleaded, her voice starting to break. "Maybe I can speak with someone higher up? I don't mean to cause any trouble, but I am just a guest." "Guests do not simply walk in and demand exceptions," he replied, an icy edge piercing his voice. "You're welcome to book another hotel, but I cannot guarantee a room here." Her shoulders sagged under the weight of his refusal. After all the months of pinching pennies, dreaming of this luxurious escape, she felt utterly defeated. Just as she was losing hope, a calming presence intervened. "Excuse me, sir," said a woman's voice behind Karoline. She turned to see a well-dressed employee stepping forward, an assistant manager, judging by her badge. "I overheard your conversation. Is there a problem we might resolve?" The hotel manager frowned, clearly displeased by the interruption. "There is nothing to resolve, Rachel. This individual is not authorized to be here due to potential issues linked to her name." Rachel's gaze shifted to Karoline, and she offered an empathetic smile. "Ms. Leavitt, may I see your reservation details?" With her hands trembling slightly, she fished her phone from her bag and quickly showed the email confirmation. A flicker of hope ignited within her as Rachel scanned the screen, her brow furrowing in thought. After what felt like an eternity, Rachel looked back at Karoline, determination in her eyes. "Hold tight. Let me make a few calls." She turned to the manager, her posture firm. Another tension-filled moment passed before Rachel returned with a softened expression. "I've spoken to our tech team, and there appears to have been an error in our system that linked your name to someone else," she announced. "We'd like to rectify it and welcome you, if you're still interested." Karoline could hardly believe what she'd heard. "You mean I can stay?" The weight of her disappointment started to lift, replaced with cautious optimism. Absolutely, Rachel confirmed, a relieved smile breaking across her face. Let me escort you to your room, and I'll make sure you have everything you need for your stay. Gratitude welled up inside Karoline, and as she followed Rachel toward the elevator, she took one last look at the hotel manager, who stood with arms crossed, visibly displeased. She had triumphed over an unfair situation. Her weekend was back on, and as the elevator doors closed, she let the wave of anxiety wash away, replaced by the promise of the experience she had long awaited. Karoline stood in the lavish lobby of the upscale hotel, her heart fluttering with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Just a week earlier, she had received the email confirming her reservation, an acknowledgement of her hard work and determination to secure a spot at the annual conference that celebrated innovation and entrepreneurship. She had dreamed of this moment for years. Yet, as she approached the front desk, those dreams began to unravel. Mr. Thompson, the manager, sat behind the polished mahogany desk with a demeanor that suggested he was the gatekeeper of this exclusive world. His slick-back hair and tailored suit screamed authority as his eyes scanned the screen in front of him. When he finally looked up, the expression on his face was one of barely concealed skepticism. "I suppose you think you belong here," he remarked, a smirk dancing at the corners of his mouth as he scrutinized her casual attire, a simple blouse and well-worn jeans. His condescending tone sent a jolt of indignation through her. She could feel the weight of his gaze, measuring her worth against the lavish backdrop of the hotel, coupled with the neatly dressed guests who ambled past her, unaware of the tension that had suddenly engulfed her moment. Clenching her fists, Karoline fought against the heat rising in her cheeks. She had come too far and worked too hard to let a mere glance from a man who thrived on elitism derail her. The visions of her past, nights spent studying, days filled with endless job applications, and relentless rejection emails, flooded her mind. This was her time, not just for herself but for every underdog striving to be seen. With a deep breath, she chose to assert herself calmly, her voice steady and unwavering. "I booked this room like everyone else," she replied, ensuring her words were clear yet firm. She refused to let his arrogance define her worth. It was remarkable how the atmosphere around them shifted, murmurs from other guests threaded through the chic lobby, and curiosity piqued as others began to take notice of this unfolding confrontation. Mr. Thompson's smirk faltered for a moment, revealing a hint of surprise. He seemed to take in her composure, the way she stood tall despite seeming out of place in this upscale setting. His brow furrowed, but he quickly regained his insincere facade, a layer of judgment veiling his features. "Well, it seems there's been a mix-up. We don't accommodate walk-ins at this level without proper attire or reservation checks," he retorted, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed over his chest, as if to put an invisible barrier between them. For a fleeting moment, Karoline considered her options. Leaving would be easy, she could walk out, head held high and dignity intact. But she wasn't about to let that energy-deflating dismissal win. Taking another breath, she leaned slightly forward, breaking the invisible barrier. "I have my confirmation number and my ID. I'm here for the conference, and I should be welcomed like everyone else." Her determination ignited a fire within her that made her feel invincible. Guests nearby watched with rapt attention, a few exchanged whispers, their glances flicking between her and Mr. Thompson. For many, this was more than just a dispute over a reservation, it was a spectacle of assertiveness and class conflict. The undercurrent of tension rapidly escalated as more people joined the growing audience, eager to see the outcome of this standoff. Mr. Thompson must have sensed the shifting tide, for the confidence in his expression wavered. He shifted in his seat, casting a furtive glance around as though seeking an ally in his righteousness. "Look, I'm just following protocol," he muttered defensively. But the fire in Karoline's eyes wasn't extinguishing that easily. "Protocol doesn't excuse disrespect," she pressed, feeling the momentum shift entirely in her favor. The whispers grew louder now as one of the other guests stepped forward, visibly irritated. "I think it's time for a manager who understands the meaning of hospitality," he stated, casting a pointed look at Mr. Thompson. Karoline felt a mix of gratitude and empowerment wash over her. The shift in dynamics was palpable. What began as a solitary battle had now ignited a collective response. As Mr. Thompson's bravado started to crumble under the scrutiny of the gathered crowd, she knew she had proven her point. A minute later, after countless exchanges and a discussion with higher-ups alerted by the unfolding drama, Karoline was finally ushered to her room, her smile brimming with triumph. She had not only claimed her space but had done so in a way that challenged the status quo, her presence a reminder that everyone, regardless of attire or background, deserves respect and a place to belong. Just as Karoline began to lose hope, a voice spoke from behind her. "Excuse me, is everything okay here?" It was an older gentleman, presumably a regular guest at the hotel, with salt and pepper hair that framed his wise, weathered face. His tailored suit, though undoubtedly expensive, was worn with a certain casual grace that spoke to years of travel rather than ostentation. Mr. Thompson, the hotel's manager, rolled his eyes, clearly annoyed. "This young lady," he said coldly, gesturing dismissively at Karoline, "seems to think she deserves the same treatment as our prestigious guests." The words dripped with condescension, and Karoline felt a flush of embarrassment as heat rose in her cheeks. Karoline's heart raced, a mix of humiliation and indignation surging through her. Did she deserve to be treated like a second-class citizen in a place that marketed itself on luxury and hospitality? She took a breath, forcing herself to maintain composure. The opulence surrounding her, the glittering chandeliers, the ornate marble floors, the guests clad in designer attire, created a stark contrast to her own frayed jeans and modest top, borrowed for the occasion. As Mr. Thompson continued his tirade, the old man stepped closer, eyes narrowed but glistening with a strange mixture of compassion and steel. "She deserves respect, just like everyone else," he said, his voice low yet resonant. "Perhaps you should reconsider your attitude." The hotel's manager sneered but hesitated, taken aback by the unexpected ally in his midst. "Sir, if you could just mind your own business," Mr. Thompson replied, but there was a tremor in his voice, a flicker of doubt that Karoline seized upon like a lifeline. The old man's expression hardened. "This isn't merely about business, it's about decency. I've been coming to this hotel for years, and I've seen the good it can do. But to see someone so young and clearly in need of assistance treated like this," he gestured vaguely, "it's unacceptable." Karoline found her voice, her heart pounding with newfound courage. "I'm only trying to check in for my reservation." "I was promised a room only for it to disappear," she interjected, her tone firm but respectful. It felt good to speak up, to reclaim her dignity, if only for a moment. "I understand there's a protocol, but I just need some help." Mr. Thompson was momentarily speechless, a hint of irritation still brewing behind his frost-blue eyes, but the old man's intervening presence had clearly shaken him. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the old gentleman added, turning towards her with a warm, kind smile that disarmed her discomfort. "What's your name?" "Karoline," she replied, her voice steadier now. "Karoline, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Mr. Hargrove, a long-time visitor to this establishment." "You have every right to expect a warm welcome," he continued, glancing back at Mr. Thompson as though re-establishing his authority. "Would you mind checking your records again, Mr. Thompson? Perhaps there's some mistake." Mr. Thompson hesitated, casting a narrowing glare at Karoline, but the presence of Mr. Hargrove seemed to make him weigh his options. With a reluctant sigh, he turned to his computer, fingers hesitating above the keyboard as he clearly relished the opportunity to show Karoline up for bothering him. "We've all made mistakes, gentlemen," Mr. Hargrove murmured, his voice firm yet calming. "Let's rectify this." As seconds dripped by like candle wax, Karoline found herself holding her breath. The lobby felt tense, the plush surroundings suddenly conspiring against her. But Mr. Hargrove remained steadfast, radiating an aura of patience. Finally, Mr. Thompson's expression flickered, and a low groan escaped his lips. "It appears there was a mix-up in our system," he begrudgingly admitted, though he couldn't meet either of their eyes. "Your reservation is still valid. I'll have a key prepared immediately." Relief flooded through Karoline, mingled with disbelief. "Thank you," she responded softly, her shoulders relaxing. Mr. Hargrove's warm gaze lingered on her. "See? All it takes is a little advocacy," he said, a twinkle of mischief in his eyes. And there's always someone willing to step in. With her key in hand, Karoline felt a weight lift off her shoulders. It was a small victory, but in that moment, bolstered by a stranger's kindness, she'd begun to realize that respect was not just a right, it was a conversation waiting to unfold. She smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude and newfound determination. Section 4, standing tall. With newfound courage and the support of the unexpected ally, Karoline straightened her back. "Thank you, sir. I came here to enjoy my time, not to be insulted," she boldly declared. The lobby buzzed with murmurs, eyebrows raised in disbelief as Mr. Thompson's face turned an ugly shade of red. "What's it going to be, Mr. Thompson?" Karoline continued, her voice steady. "Is this your approach to hospitality? Because if it is, I will gladly take my business elsewhere." The hotel manager's expression faltered for just a moment, and the supportive crowd watched with bated breath. In a surprising twist, Mr. Thompson seemed to reconsider. Perhaps the collective attention had momentarily humbled him. He cleared his throat. "I apologize, Miss Leavitt. I must have misjudged the situation. Please allow me to make it right. Your stay will be complimentary." Gasps filled the lobby, and Karoline could hardly believe what she was hearing. The crowd erupted in applause, cheering for fairness and respect, a clear victory for Karoline. As she turned to leave the desk, she glanced back at the manager. Remember, every guest deserves dignity, no matter their appearance. With a smile, she walked into the luxurious lobby. Ready in the gleaming lobby of the Regency Grand Hotel, a palpable tension hung in the air, punctuated by the sounds of tapping heels on polished marble and hushed conversations. The opulence of the surroundings, with its grand chandeliers and plush furnishings, felt in stark contrast to the incident that had just unfolded. Karoline Leavitt, a young woman with a unique sense of style, approached the front desk with hopeful anticipation. Her heart pounded not only from excitement for her weekend getaway, but also from an undercurrent of anxiety about how she would be treated. Mr. Thompson, the hotel manager, stood behind the counter with an air of arrogance that seemed inescapable. Upon glancing at Karoline's unconventional attire, a vibrant tie-dye dress and colorful accessories that expressed her individuality, his demeanor shifted. A sneer played at the corners of his mouth. "I'm sorry, miss, but I'm afraid we don't allow just anyone to stay here," he had said dismissively, as if she were a nuisance rather than a valued guest. Stunned and speechless, Karoline felt the eyes of the crowd behind her. A few guests exchanged furtive glances, others looked on in disbelief at the manager's blatant disregard for human dignity. In that moment, a surge of determination replaced her initial shock. She understood that standing up for herself wasn't just about her own pride, it was about everyone who had ever faced discrimination for their appearance, background, or choices. "What do you mean by not just anyone?" she asked, her voice steady and unwavering. She could feel her pulse quicken, not from fear, but from a burgeoning sense of empowerment. "I've paid for my stay, and my appearance shouldn't determine my worth. This is a luxury hotel, and every guest deserves respect, no matter how they choose to express themselves." Her words reverberated through the lobby, causing a ripple of concern and curiosity. A couple nearby began to murmur in agreement, and soon others joined in, urging Mr. Thompson to reconsider his stance. While the initial shock had left the atmosphere slightly charged, it was the emergence of solidarity that changed everything. With each nod and murmured approval from the small gathering, Karoline felt bolstered. She realized that this moment extended beyond her individual plight. It was about dignity, respect, and inclusivity for all. After what felt like an eternity, Mr. Thompson, realizing the tide was turning against him, seemed momentarily flustered. His confident demeanor wavered under the collective gaze of witnesses. Perhaps the unexpected support for Karoline had shaken his resolve. Clearing his throat, he took a step back from the counter and straightened his posture. "I apologize, Miss Leavitt," he began, his tone softer, though still laced with a hint of defensiveness. "I must have misjudged the situation. Please allow me to make it right. Your stay will be complimentary." Gasps erupted in the lobby, and the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Karoline barely registered the applause that followed, the sound reverberating joyfully all around her. It was a clear victory, not just for her, but for everyone who longed to be treated with fairness. With renewed strength, she held her head high as she accepted his acknowledgement. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson," she said, her smile radiant but measured. "I hope you remember this moment. Every guest deserves dignity, no matter their appearance." With a deep breath, she turned to leave the desk, her spirits buoyed by her newfound empowerment. As she stepped into the expanse of the luxurious lobby, she felt a sense of lightness, buoyed by joy and self-assurance. The elegant surroundings no longer felt imposing, instead, they felt welcoming. The weekend was hers to embrace, a canvas upon which to paint her experiences free of prejudice. The ordeal with Mr. Thompson transformed what initially could have been a simple weekend getaway into an invaluable lesson about the complexities of respect, humility, and the potency of standing up against discrimination. It was a reminder that no matter how one chooses to express themselves, everyone is deserving of kindness and dignity. As the applause faded, Karoline felt something greater than a personal victory. She celebrated the simple yet profound truth that change often begins with one courageous voice. In that moment, she resolved to amplify hers even further, committed to advocating for respect and fairness in every space she occupied. It was just the beginning of a much larger journey, one that she was more than ready to embrace. Embrace her weekend with a newfound sense of empowerment and joy. And so, a simple weekend getaway turned into a lesson about respect, humility, and the power of standing up against discrimination.